The new Peppercorn Ranch Chicken Protein Pocket from Subway.
K the boss, 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 K the boss. K the boss, K the boss, K the K the boss, K the boss, K the boss. K the boss, K the boss, K the boss. K the boss, K the boss, K the boss.
Taxes was feeling unwell. Now tax.
What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Thank you guys for being here. Welcome to another live stream with your boy Citizen Man and your good brother B Miles 84. Shout out to B Miles, man. That's my man. That is my bro. Yo, B, you there, bro?
Yeah, man. Peace. What's going on, bro?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and greet the people, man. Tell them what time it is, man.
Yeah, man. Shit, man. B Miles, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely back up in the building tonight. You know what I'm saying? But Citizen Man and stuff like that, we definitely going to be having, we're definitely going to be having, you know what I'm saying, another great show. And like I said, I'm definitely, you know what I'm saying, grateful to have Citizen Man, you know what I'm saying, back up on the show and whatnot for real. And like I said, you know what I mean? So, Citizen Man is definitely going to take the floor. Like I said, I'm going to chime in from time to time, to give the you know what I mean, the guests to shine and stuff like that. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe to Citizen Man channel. So without further ado, Citizen Man can take the floor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for being here. Shout out to everybody over on B Miles channel. I know you guys, I appreciate the fact that you guys rock with me and you tune in to watch me when we do these collabs and whatnot. And shout out to everybody on my page. I know this is an off night for me because this is not a normal night that I go live, but I appreciate you guys that tuned in, and hopefully more people get the notification so they tune in too. But B Miles, what we're talking about tonight is the illegal alien situation and the situation with ICE, right? And I call it a foreign infiltration. That's why I put that on the thumbnail, right? Foreign infiltration. And the reason why I call it a foreign infiltration is because I see a lot of individuals within our U.S. Congress and in these states who are who are either foreigners themselves or have working business agreements with these foreign nationals, and they are in staunch defense of these people being in this country, even though there's literally no logical reason for these people being here, because they provide no benefit to the American people. In fact, when you look at the government assistance statistics, what you'll find is illegal headed households, like illegal alien headed households, are the biggest welfare, food stamps, and cash assistance recipients in the country. And that's pretty crazy, because nowhere else in the world can you go and see this same type of stuff going on. I mean, well, few places, I should say, because Europe is on that bullshit now. But when you have foreign nationals invading your country, and you have individuals within your own government that opens the borders and facilitates this invasion, and not only facilitates it, but uses the money that they take out of your paycheck every day, every day that you work, and every week or 2 weeks that you get paid, and they give this money to these foreign nationals, that is literally a slap in the face to every American. And to see these American citizens out here protesting ICE and trying to demonize ICE, it's crazy to me, because if you're an American citizen, what happens is ICE will stop you if they think you're a foreigner and you're an illegal alien, and they'll ask you for your name and your date of birth. That's basically stop an ID. And constitutionally, it's not legal. But unfortunately, we're in wartime. We've been in a state of declared war since 2001. So if the president so chooses to enact his wartime powers, he can send out federal forces to basically stop and ID everybody if their mission, if their stated objective is to remove foreign nationals who have entered the country illegally. And as American citizens, we would be doing ourselves a disservice to impede that process, because with the presence of these illegal aliens, or to use a nicer term, these foreign nationals who don't have these unauthorized foreign nationals, we have to share our resources with these people. And by resources, it's not just the welfare, it's also the job positions, the industries, like the blue collar industry, for example. There's a huge number of Americans that are in the blue collar labor pool that are looking for contractors to go work for and get jobs with and use their skills to make a living. But with the influx of these illegal aliens, we started to see mainly only one demographic serving as the labor force in these specific industries, and that's because they were willing to work for less money than the American workers were willing to work for. And that disenfranchised millions of Americans. And people act like these illegals being here is, it's of no consequence. But that's because they are removed from the effects of these illegals being here. But for the people who are directly affected by it, like I'll give you an example, in the trucking industry, once they opened up the borders, all these illegals started coming into the country, and a lot of them started getting CDLs, commercial driver's licenses, and they started driving big rigs and working for these big trucking companies. Meanwhile, there were millions and millions of Americans, black, white, and of all colors, that were trying to get these jobs as well, but all these positions were filled. And you know what happened when Trump deployed ICE and they sent them out to go grab everybody? Thousands of jobs started opening up in the trucking industry. But this is the part of the story that the fake news won't tell you. This is the part of the story that they leave out, and this is the lie of omission that they tell. They leave this part out of the story to make sure that you only get one side, and the side that you get is, oh, feel bad for the poor little illegals. But what about the poor little Americans that were being squeezed out of their jobs, forced out of their industries? Not only that, but with the excessive housing assistance that they've been getting from these democratic cities, they've also been able to displace Black Americans and force them out of their homes. And to see American citizens out in the streets advocating for these people, there's got to be something bigger at play. There's got to be some force behind all of this that's fomenting and feeding all of this and financing all of this, because there's no possible way that free-thinking, sane American citizens would be in favor of this invasion. There's no way. But I'm sorry, I got off ranting, and I do long form shows, so I'm used to talking and I'm long winded. But B Miles, you got the floor, bro.
Oh, now you good, bro. You good, bro. Listen to you, bro. You dropping gems.
So with this invasion, and if you think back to when Trump always referenced the migrant influx into the country, the illegal aliens, the open borders, he always referred to it as an invasion. Invasion is a term that's synonymous with an act of war. An invasion is an act of war. And what these people have done in our country is the Democrats have opened the borders and allowed these foreign nationals to come into our country and occupy housing, collect taxpayer-funded government benefits, and on our dime, and they have put these people at the front of the line while pissing on the American people, while taxing and taking money from the American people to give to these individuals. You know what that means? That means that the Democratic Party is the party of foreign infiltration. They are the government agents who are actually foreign infiltrators, but they hold these positions of power within the government because they can use those positions of power to steer the country's finances and the people's compliance in the way of the international one world government establishment. That is their goal. And the reason why they brought in all these illegal aliens is because look what happened around the same time. Tariq Nasheed, and I don't even like Tariq Nasheed. I think he's gay and he smacks his lips a lot and he always purses his lips, and it's kind of weird. And he's married to a half Jewish lady and he won't call out the Jews, but he's always talking shit about white people. So I have all my criticisms of Tariq Nasheed. He looks like a chipmunk in the face. The list goes on. But when he came up with that FBA label, which if you go look at the original definition of FBA, it actually ties you back to Africa. But, fortunately, right. But fortunately, millions of Black Americans have used that FBA label and adopted that FBA label, but they use it to tie themselves to America. And what I see now is the Democrats are losing their grip on the minds of Black Americans and convincing Black Americans that America is a bad place and you have to hate it and you have to destroy it because it's all white supremacy. And with these Black Americans embracing their Americanism, they're starting to take a different approach to this illegal immigration thing, because now instead of looking at it as a color thing, they're looking at it as a nationalistic thing. Like, you are not of this nation. You do not deserve to get first dibs of what this nation has to offer in front of me, because I am a foundational national of this country. I was here before this country was started. And now that this country has been established, I'm still fucking here. So we're not going to take to the streets and we're not going to support you. And I think that's a beautiful thing right there. I think that was probably one of the greatest awakenings that Black Americans have had since Malcolm X. And that's the God honest truth. And I started out because, I'm a man of logic. I'm a man of facts. And when I read the definition of FBA, Tariq Nasheed says FBA started when enslaved Africans were brought to Virginia and they fought to be free, and they mixed with the Native American, the indigenous Americans who were there. And that's how the foundational Black American lineage started. But when you really think about it, that ties you back to Africa. But if it's a case where your ancestors never came from Africa and their lineage started here and has always been here, then that definition doesn't exactly fit. right? So that's my only objection to the FBA label. But the sentiment that's attached to that label and the view that Black Americans especially are starting to take towards America in terms of appreciating their Americanism is a positive thing, because that's what Trump has always been about. Trump has always been about America first. Now we see him doing a lot of Israel ass kissing, and I myself don't like it, but I understand why it has to be done, because Israel did 9/11. And if you don't understand how those two things coincide, that's what this whole stream is about. Hence tonight's topic, the hidden agenda behind the ICE protests. It's much darker than you think. And by the end of this show, I hope that you guys walk away with a full understanding of how wicked and how evil these controllers are and this agenda is that they have for us, because they are not playing. They're at the end of their road, and they are ready to lash out and commit all manners of evil against the American people. And I'm sure you guys noticed something weird happening with these ICE protests lately. And if you haven't noticed, this is what's been happening. There's been this sudden push in the mainstream media to get Black Americans behind these ICE protests. And that raised a serious red flag for me. That made me stop and think and say, well, these liberals don't like Black people. They don't care about Black people. They only use Black people as pawns. They did it in the George Floyd riots. They do it every election cycle when they promise reparations and don't give Black Americans nothing, but somehow found all this money to give illegal aliens welfare. Think about that for a second. And now we're seeing them try to promote Black faces to push these anti-ICE protests. And it really got me thinking. And I was like, everything that the mainstream media and the Democratic Party tries to convince Black Americans to do is never in their favor. It's always to their detriment. So what is the detriment in this situation? And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you right now, based on my research and observing other situations that are similar to this around the world, I've come to the conclusion that they have very, very sinister plans for Black people if they were to fall for this narrative. Remember, this same establishment, when they lie to you and they get you to believe the lies, believing though your belief in those lies puts you in danger. Remember when they lied about the vaccine? Now to date, we have more people dead from the vaccine than COVID. And why did these people take the vaccine? Because they believed the lie. These lies are dangerous. These lies are treacherous. They lied about about Joe Biden being a better president than Trump. And they stole a whole election to put Joe Biden in. They lied. And what happened when Joe Biden came in? You guys remember? The economy went to shit. And life became difficult. The borders got opened up. The country got overrun by foreign nationals. Taxes went up, and those taxpayer funds were being diverted to these foreign nationals. Life became unbearable at some point for a lot of people. And now Trump is back in there, and we see a stark difference. We see a push to remove these foreign nationals, alleviate that financial burden, return the taxpayers' money back to the taxpayers, implement tariffs. Tariffs are taxes on the manufacturing costs of imports. And you know who pays those tariffs? Foreign countries. The importers pay those tariffs, not the Americans. And the mainstream media, the Democratic Party, wants you to believe that tariffs are so bad. Why? Because income tax is better. And the whole point of the tariffs is to offset the income tax. Yes, of course, the rhinos are always a part of it too. Somebody in my chat said, don't forget the rhinos. Poor Dennison. And he's right. The rhinos' job is to occupy Republican positions and allow the Democrats to do what they do. And they do that. They might not outright come out and say, we're against transgenders in female bathrooms. They might not come outright and say it. But when it's time to vote on Congress, they won't show up or they won't vote. That's how they play it. But sorry, what I discovered about this foreign infiltration. Let me get back to that. I just went off on a tangent. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but the whole purpose of this foreign invasion was to implant certain individuals into American cities all across the country, provide them with finances and materials to carry out certain missions here on U.S. soil. And those missions is what we're going to really get into, because on the surface level, it's a bunch of illegal aliens in the country, soaking up resources, occupying housing, displacing American citizens, get them the fuck out of here. That is basically the foundational basis for the entire operation. But with the added information of what these illegals are here to do, it's a lot scarier than just what we see on the surface. B Miles, you wanna take a stab at what you think I might be getting at, or you just want me to keep cooking?
Absolutely, man. Because about you were saying about this whole entire invasion, like I remember let me close the window real quick. Yeah, like I remember the time frame when we was up there talking about the invasion. I remember on the media they kept on talking about the alien invasion. And what they did was they threw us off course thinking that it was going to be a bunch of aliens coming out the sky invading us, but the whole entire time it was happening on the ground the whole entire time when they opened the borders with all of those illegal aliens. And from what I've seen, like you said, a lot of the foreign nationals, they were military age. And also too, in those same cities where they got democratic cities and all of it, those illegals, there were secret Chinese police stations over there as well. So you best believe all of that was connected. Then of course, you got the drugs and stuff coming in. China is connected with the cartel. So you best believe it was something way more sinister going on. And mind you, I also connected the dots as well. Around the time when illegals came in, we was on lockdown. We had to cover our nose, and they snuck them in right under our nose. When the pandemic happened, that's when they brought them all on.
Yep, that's true. And what's funny is those the whole Chinese spy network that was set up in the country, it's been disbanded, because Russia has China pretty much by the balls, because China is solely dependent on Russia for their fuel now. They used to get fuel from oil from Venezuela, but now Russia is going to get that oil and America is going to get that oil. That's why Trump wants Greenland, because if you look at the maps, you'll see literally a straight line from Venezuela through Greenland all the way up to Russia. It's insane when you look at it. And on conventional maps, it doesn't show that. But on a real navigational map, you'll see it. But nevertheless, Russia has China basically in check, right? Because without that Russian fuel, the Chinese, they can't start their engines. And hold on a second. And as far as the foreign infiltration, there's one particular group that's in charge and that's running that foreign infiltration, and they're using operatives, players, and groups from a plethora of nations around the world. And that group is the Israeli Mossad, the Israeli spy agency, because we know Israel has a firm grip on the United States federal government, so much so that more and more people are starting to believe that Israel even has control over Donald Trump. And in a way they do. But the way they are doing it is not by the conventional methods of blackmail. We got tapes on you doing sexually perverted shit and all that, because Trump's a germaphobe. You can't be a germaphobe and a pervert at the same time. The two things can't exist in the same mind, right? So the fact that Trump's a germaphobe means he's on the up and up. He don't engage in that kind of shit. But they, with the arrest and the prosecution of Jeffrey, or should I say the disappearance of Jeffrey Epstein, that basically torpedoed their entire plan to blackmail politicians, because now Trump has all that information on hand, and these politicians know that. The public may not know that, but the people who he's got the blackmail on, they know that. So now their job is to get him out of power, discredit him as much as they can, even try to kill him, right? And because he's on the other side of things, he's not down with the perversion and the pedophilia and all that shit. They can't use that traditional blackmail that they would use on other presidents against him. This is why they had to have that nutty, batshit crazy chick, that failed author, E. Jean Carroll, try to claim that he raped her in a dressing room in the middle of the day. Like, it's high noon. Like, you are sweaty and your shit smells like fish. Like, I'm a germaphobe. I'm not coming nowhere near that. You know what I'm saying? Mind you, the man owned the freaking hotel across the street. So if he really wanted to clap some cheeks, he could have been in the presidential suite, top floor of Trump Tower, clapping whatever pair of cheeks he wanted to. But he's going to rape some random bitch in a dressing room at Bloomingdale's. Like, first of all, why the fuck is Trump at Bloomingdale's? You know what I'm saying? And this is why they have to come up and create all these lies. And even, do you know that, have you noticed that nobody in the media is talking about the 34 felonies anymore? You remember when they were saying that? Like, America elected a convicted felon. You remember that stupid shit?
Oh, yeah.
You don't hear that no more, do you? Because the appeals court threw out the case. And the appeals court threw out the case because they fabricated the felony in the first place. In the state of New York, falsifying business records is a misdemeanor, unless you're falsifying business records to cover up another crime that you're actually being charged with. Like, let's say you were laundering drug money for your dope dealing homeboy. Now you got to falsify your business record and make it look like your business is making more money than it's actually making, because you have to account for all that drug money that you deposited in your business account, right? So falsifying business records would be the misdemeanor, but the underlying crime would be money laundering. So now that falsifying business record charge gets upgraded to a felony. It gets escalated to a felony. But in the state of New York, they claim that the underlying crime was Trump giving Stormy Daniels $135,000 and a non-disclosure agreement to not say that she had an affair with him. That's not a crime. So to make those charges a felony was based on a false premise, and they didn't have legal grounds for it, so the case got thrown out. It was a fake fucking case to begin with. Mind you, the $135,000 that was paid to Stormy Daniels came out of Michael Cohen's account. And if you don't know who Michael Cohen's is, Michael Cohen's is a disbarred, disgraced lawyer that was once Trump's lawyer. And he ended up going to jail for committing more fraud and telling more lies. He ended up going to prison, and he did some prison time. This is the guy that they hang their fucking case on. Mind you, he's the one that paid the porn star, not Trump. So the whole case got torpedoed and it got thrown out. So they've constantly been making up these lies. And when these lies get proven to be lies, they just shift to something else and try to act like all this never happened. They cover up these stories. They bury these court rulings, and they try to keep you under the impression that Trump is this big bad guy that's just getting away with everything. And it's a bunch of bullshit, because everything that they're throwing at him is bullshit, right? But mind you, there's people out there who still believe that lie about the 34 felonies, and they will use that in a debate with you. Well, he's a felon and he got charged with 34 felonies and still became president. Or he got convicted of 34 felonies and still became president, and blah, 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 blah. Mind you, by this time, the case has already been thrown out. It's scrapped. It means nothing. The charges didn't stick. Like, for real. But the same fake news that lied to these people about these 34 felonies based on this fake case, they haven't told these people that fake case was proven to be fake and got thrown out. They wouldn't tell them that. They'll let them just keep making themselves look stupid and telling this lie. but yet people still support people still support this propaganda. And what blows my mind is like the fact that they're so focused on how bad Trump is that they forget that there's other people out there that are way worse. And when it comes to these ICE raids, and when you hear Trump talk about criminal aliens and the worst of the worst, like that shit is true. And I got a couple slides for you. I got a few slides for you guys tonight to kind of, I guess, support what I'm telling you, right? So I'll give it to you in a nutshell, and then we'll go through the evidence and we'll break it down. In a nutshell, the reason why the entire establishment wants people to oppose ICE is because they want to keep the illegal aliens here so they can keep the fraud and the scams going, the food stamp fraud and all that, and the child care fraud, to keep that going so they can keep greasing their pockets. That's number one. Number two, they know that if these illegal aliens that are involved in this fraud and bribing these politicians get caught by ICE and they get put into custody, they could be offered deals. And these deals may involve them snitching, which means they'll tell on their ass. So now they got to rile the people up and get enough bodies out there to put a barrier between themselves and the illegal alien, between ICE and the illegal aliens, so the illegal aliens could make their escape. Now, not only is it to protect the fraud schemes and the welfare fraud and all the money that they're making and the bribery and shit, but there's another sinister aspect to all this, which is not being talked about, because this is something that the military is going to have to handle. And if you guys watch my last stream, when it comes to Minnesota, I detailed exactly which units are going to be deployed to Minnesota. If it comes down to it, that will be the 111th Airborne and the Army Green Berets. And I also detailed the operations to which they may be carrying out, right? But nevertheless, the other aspect of it is the sleeper cells. And this is why Trump has been kissing Israel's ass so much, because this is the Israeli Mossad's specialty: infiltrating sovereign nations, creating sleeper cells of terrorists that are willing to commit mass casualty events against the people of that nation if the government of that nation decides they're not going to play ball with Israel. And 9/11, you guys watch B Miles' show. You guys are familiar with, you guys watch my show. Y'all familiar with Nasara. Nasara was due to be announced. Well, yo, B Miles, what was it? September 10th, the day before 9/11 or the day after 9/11?
September the 11th, 2001 at 9:00 a.m.
See? And what was going on September 11th by 9:00 a.m., B Miles?
Pretty much on the tower.
Right. And Nasara was going to create an America which was free from all this foreign infiltration, foreign occupation, and foreign control. And instead of allowing Nasara to be enacted, they decided to carry out a mass casualty event that we now know as 9/11, killing thousands. I don't know. Some say 3,000, some say 10,000. I just say thousands of innocent American citizens, just for the sake of maintaining their system of control. And the reason why Trump has to tread lightly with Israel and pretend to be Israel's friend is because Israel had a direct hand in 9/11. Go look up the Israeli art students in the Twin Towers in 2001. And there's a picture of these so-called art students next to some boxes. And on the boxes, they have a certain label. And the label is actually describes parts that are meant for explosives, detonator parts for explosives. And it was well known that they were bombs used in that building. So you put two and two together. Not only that, But the guy who owned the World Trade Center, Larry Silverstein, Steen, you hear that? Steen? Yeah, Larry Silverstein. He was losing money. So he had but he had insurance on the buildings and he had a financial incentive to go along with the plan. And guess what? Mr. Silverstein was one of them too. So it wasn't hard to put two and two together and murder thousands of Americans in order to prop up their system of control. It wasn't very hard to do at all. And if you think they can't do it again, you'll be deluding yourself. And this is why it was so important for them to push the radical Islam narrative, because that takes the heat off of them. And we're in the same situation now, but it's a little bit worse. And it's a little bit worse because it's not only Israeli Mossad operatives lying in wait in America, but now that the borders have been opened up for the last 4 years, we now have active gang members, cartel members, and hardcore criminals who are also members of these sleeper cells because they get paid pretty well, because, you know, the small hats got a lot of money. They get paid pretty well. And now there's even more. They've basically increased their ranks. And this goes back to what B. Miles was saying about the military age males that were coming across the border in the migrant caravans. Venezuela opened up their prisons and let their prisoners out, and the prisoners are over here and they have a job and they work for the Israeli Mossad, and their job is to be the hit squads if the order is ever given. Now, if that sounds crazy and you don't believe it, consider this. During these ICE raids, they have uncovered stash houses with caches of weapons. And when I say weapons, I don't mean just, you know, your average drug dealer guns like pistols and rifles. We're talking box-fed and belt-fed machine guns. We're talking RPGs, grenade launchers, grenades, C4, like military-grade weaponry. And it's not being widely reported, but you can find this information on the DOJ website. And the reason why ICE is being so heavy-handed, and you notice how they're out with you know, long guns, pistols, tactical vests, faces covered, because they're not just grabbing illegal aliens and sending them back to where they came from. You know, they're not just grabbing Pedro out the cornfield and you got to go home, Pedro. Like, no, Mr. Jordan, give me a job. You know, no, they're going after organized crime. And if you go back and the Democrats and the mainstream media is making this big stink about they're wearing masks. Wasn't these the same motherfuckers trying to force us all to wear masks back in 2020? You see the hypocrisy? Not only that, but law enforcement has always been known to wear masks when they're dealing with organized crime. Go Google SWAT team drug raid and click images and tell me how many officers you see wearing masks. So this is nothing out of the ordinary, but they're trying to play it off as if it's something out of the ordinary. But this is standard procedure when you're dealing with organized crime, and the fact that they're wearing masks should be an indicator to us in the public who should be in the know that, hey, these guys aren't just grabbing Pedro, you know, off the ladder from the paint company. These guys are actually dealing with some hardcore dudes. And these caches of weapons that they're finding, are military grade weapons. They're being purchased and stashed in these stash houses by the South and Central American and Mexican drug cartels, because the drug cartels are also on the deep state payroll as hit squads to go out and kill Americans. And here's the way things would play out if it were to get ugly. If Trump actually showed his true sentiment about Israel and completely cut off Israel, just 100% pull the plug and said, fuck Israel, let Iran bomb them, what would happen is these hit squads would be activated and they would go out and they would start murdering American people in the streets. That's their mission. But because Trump has been kissing up to Israel and playing nice while slowly reducing military support to Israel, The hit squads haven't been activated. So he's slowly undermining their agenda without doing too much to trigger the hit squads. Now, if you don't believe the narrative about the hit squads, I will share something with you that should change your mind. Some facts with you. Let me say that should change your mind. Now, based on the 2011 Libyan uprising, who remembers when they went after Gaddafi and they turned up in Libya during the Arab Spring in 2011? Y'all remember that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, part of that was these so-called rebels, right? I'll just read it. Based on the 2011 Libyan uprising, there are documented instances of anti-Gaddafi rebels raiding government, police, and military facilities, which often involved seizing weapons and uniforms. Now, this is very important because these were the originators of the frontiersmen, of ISIS. The fake news was calling them Libyan rebels. And I'm sure you guys remember hearing about the Libyan rebels all over the news, valiantly fighting against Gaddafi, the evil Gaddafi security forces. Mind you, Gaddafi was trying to create the United States of Africa and have gold-backed currency. He was trying to implement the first stage of the quantum financial system, which is what's actually been taking place under Trump with the BRICS. But they killed the deep state that was in control of America at the time, helped fund ISIS to go in and kill Gaddafi. And not only did they go in to go kill Gaddafi, but they helped push the narrative that Gaddafi's security forces were killing innocent civilians in Libya. And the way that they did it was by raiding government, police, and military facilities and stealing weapons and uniforms. And they put on the uniforms of Gaddafi's security forces, and they went out and started killing people in the streets, because around the same time, there was something else going on in Libya that we still don't know about and haven't been told about, where the people were taken to the streets and protesting. And while these people were out protesting, these gangs of men dressed like Gaddafi's police and military showed up and started shooting people. And the fake news over here in America was reporting it as if Gaddafi is sending out his forces to kill his political opposition, and he's this big bad dictator that needs to be gotten rid of. So America threw their support behind the Libyan rebels, which was ISIS. And the Libyan rebels tore Libya the fuck up and destroyed it and killed Gaddafi and stifled any plans of the United States of Africa or a precious metals backed currency. Propped up the current fiat financial system. That's all they did. And now in New York, on January 4th, 2026, NYPD uniforms found stuffed in a box on New York City street, sparking mystery. Now, can you guys, can you draw a parallel as to how the two could possibly be related? Because in Libya, there was an anti-government uprising, and those anti-government terrorists decided to put on government uniforms and murder innocent civilians, right? What are we seeing in America? What have we been seeing in America since Trump started the ICE raids? We started seeing an anti-Trump administration uprising and a pretty heavy-handed government response from the Trump administration. And then all of a sudden, government uniforms show up in the streets. Those uniforms were meant for killers, a sleeper cell, to acquire, to put on, and go out and kill these protesters. Now, if you still don't believe me, just wait. There's more. Anti-ICE protests stretch across Michigan. Anti-ICE protests held outside downtown Fresno ICE office, and there was anti-ICE protests all across the country, right? But after Renee Good got shot and the fake news started spinning their narrative, the anti-ICE protests actually intensified and more people came out in the streets. And now we see this push from the fake news media and the COINTELPRO infiltrators on social media to get more people out into the streets against ICE, which would be the and there's also this push now, this current push now to get Black Americans especially out into the streets against ICE. Charles W. says, not killers, murderers. Hey, man, they all the same to me, bro. They all, but I know what you mean, though, because you could be a killer because you killed somebody in self-defense, or you could be a murderer because you murdered somebody in cold blood. So I see the difference there, Charles. That was actually pretty brilliant. But you see this push to get people out into the streets. And that scares me because the government does not, and the mainstream media does not advocate for anything that's to your favor. So if they're telling you go form large groups and get out into the streets, that can't be good. Okay. Now, there was an event that occurred in Iran about about a week ago or so, and it just finally quieted down. And the narrative about what occurred in Iran, we're getting two different stories from the mainstream media that we know lies to us, and from the Iranian government, who we hardly ever hear from, right? And CNN reports Iran's supreme leader acknowledges thousands were killed in protests. So what happened in Iran was, and let's go Wikipedia, 2026 Iran massacres, and Human Rights Watch says Iran growing evidence of countrywide massacres, right? So what was happening in Iran was at the start of the new year, thousands of people started taking to the streets and protesting the policies of the current government. And according to the mainstream narrative, the government got mad at these people for protesting because how dare you protest, and sent out security forces and just started mowing down innocent Iranians that were protesting in the streets. That's the mainstream media narrative. Sounds a lot like Libya, right? Where people were protesting in the streets and then the government sent out their forces to just shoot people down in the streets. But now we know what really happened in Libya. The terrorists stole government uniforms, disguised as government agents, and shot people down in the streets, right? That actually happened. It's documented. I just showed it to you. Correct? Correct. So now we're getting the same narrative out of Iran that we got in Libya. Right? Right. But the counter narrative from the Iranian government is it fits the playbook exactly of what took place in Libya. There were terrorists amongst the protesters, and the terrorists were the ones that opened fire on the protesters. And the Iranian government security forces then had to literally go to war in the streets of their cities against these terrorist groups. And now we're seeing pictures and videos coming out of Iran with mass numbers of prisoners in chains and shackles, and the Iranian government is saying these are the terrorists that were killing the people. So it sounds a lot like the Libya playbook, and because we've witnessed the Libya playbook in real time, and the only counter narrative to the Libya playbook being played out in Iran is the fake news that we can't trust. Well, I have to believe that the Libya narrative is what was being played out in Iran, because this is what the Iranian government is insisting happened. And I believe them, because according to the Iranian foreign minister, and I just did a live stream about that a couple days ago on my channel. So if you guys want to go check it out, just bounce over to Citizen Man TV and you'll see it. But the Iranian foreign minister said that for 10 days, the people of the country were protesting against the economic policies of the government, and the government was actually having conversations with the people, and they were reaching agreements. And then after those 10 days, there was 3 days of bloodshed, because what happened was on the 11th day, the terror cells activated and started mowing people down in the streets. And then the news and the mainstream media started reporting that the Iranian government was doing it. And they even had operatives that claimed to be witnesses pushing the same narrative. And the Iranian government was saying, no, they were terrorists amongst the protesters. They started the violence, and we shut that shit down with our security forces. And I believe it. Now, in knowing that they were mass protests in Iran, there were mass protests in Libya, and because forces beyond the governmental structure of that country had a vested interest in removing the sitting leader of that country, they murdered people of that country, spun a false narrative to remove the leadership that was actually protecting and advocating for the people of that country. It's literally the exact same narrative they're trying to play out in Iran. But now in America, I'm starting to see remnants of the same narrative. And then when you throw in the NYPD uniforms found on the side of the street, that kind of makes you think. And it's not very hard to acquire a U.S. military uniform. And it's not very hard to acquire the knowledge of how to actually put your patches on and wear your insignia correctly without being questioned. It's not very hard to do. But what I see happening here in America is exactly what played out in Iran. And to make and to make it even worse is this big push to get the Black Americans out into the fucking street advocating against their own best interest is to put Black people on the front lines in front of all these white liberals. And then when the hit squads get activated and they come out to shoot people down in the streets like they did in Iran so they can blame Trump and say ICE did it, it's going to be Black people catching them bullets. And then not only are they going to say ICE did it, but the fake news is then going to say, oh, I told you Trump's a racist and a white supremacist. Look what his fake ICE police went out and did to the Black people. Told you Trump is a racist. So they will literally shed Black Americans' blood just to push a narrative. And if you don't think they would do it, remember the Ku Klux Klan. That was a creation of the Democrat Party. And the same push to get Black people in the street to support these illegals is a creation of the Democrat Party. The sleeper cells that are heavily armed with military-grade weapons and explosives that were let in through the open border, how do you think they got here and got funded? The Democratic Party. And they're implementing the same Black Lives Matter program that they did in 2020 to get people in the streets. And who's behind it? The Democratic Party. And of course, the Rhino Republicans who aren't really opposing it. But B Miles, you go ahead and take the floor, bro. Take about 5 minutes to yourself, bro. I gotta take a bathroom break, my man.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right about that, man, about those protests. And that's another one of the great things that I'm glad that Citizen Man brought up about them protests. And we already know what these people are trying to do with them protests. And I just made a video about an hour and a half ago talking about how, quote unquote, so-called Black Americans, how we not even protesting because it's not going to be to our benefit. And just by him, Citizen Man, correlating that whole entire thing with the cells, like I've been saying for quite some time, that's who a lot of the people that we let in the country. These illegals, they put pretty sleeper cells, and they are military. So if something go down, they can do what? Activate all of those sleeper cells. That is a really good correlation. So like I said, we are doing a really good job of not falling for the okie doke, because look at what they just pulled recently with this damn Agent Tether, this fake rapper gangbanger. Now he's a Black Panther for real. It's like you already know that people are agents. Why? Because they go from one extreme to another. They want to be, it's like 1 minute they want to be this fake rapper, then they this gangbanger, and then at the same time want to be a revolutionary. They already got footage on this man all over the place, showing this man, he was on the news talking about with some gang stuff. He was sounding the exact same way. So now guess what? They showing him again. The Black Panthers, he's doing what? Talking the same way. So we already know the Democrats are pulling out all the stops. Like I've told everybody, they're going to pull out every stop that they can find to make sure they get us distracted. And they want to do what? Make us the sacrificial lamb. Not going to be the sacrificial lamb for these damn demons. You feel me? You know what I mean? For these demonic ass Democrats and even them Republicans, like you were saying, for you feel me? We can't. It's like we see right through the agenda. We already see right through the agenda. We see what these people trying to pull. They really trying to go out there and protest for some damn scamming ass light bulb head Somalis and for these damn illegals, which don't make any sense. Don't make any sense. And I told everybody the same. I told everybody this about a year ago. I said I told everybody them illegals, they not who they say they are, yo. We thinking that a lot of them is there working, or they was working, all right. A lot of them places they was working at, don't think for 1 second they was responding, looking at the operations they was. Come on, you gotta put two and two together. We got invaded around the time when we was on lockdown. You feel me? So we focusing on trying to do with that, and look who they brought in them. All of these illegals, you feel me? And they was coming through the border, I mean by the thousands. So we really gotta take a serious look at this whole entire thing, because it's a hidden agenda. And by him connecting the dots on that, that's exactly what they want us to do. They want us to be out there in that damn street. And that's why I recommend our people stand down. Do not get involved into none of that crap. That don't got nothing to do with us. And then, of course, the niece of Huey P. Newton, she already then came out and checked this fool, saying he don't represent us. And he doesn't. And a couple of them said it's not our fight, and that's real. Why in the hell we should protest against ICE? What? What is the benefit? What would be the benefit of our Capitone behinds going out there for some lawbreakers? No. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make any type of sense at all. Why would we want to go out there for these people? You feel me? And then
And the same.
What's this, man?
No, I was gonna build off what you said. And the same white liberals, those white supremacists that they tell us not to trust, are the ones leading the charge against ICE. So now all these woke black folks that don't trust the white man is going to listen to the white woman, though, and go out there and risk their lives trying to defend illegal aliens who, if given the order, many of them are going to take to the streets and gun their asses down. Like, that's literally the situation that we're facing. And we just seen the exact thing play out in Iran. We saw it play out in Libya in 2011. This is their playbook. This is their program. And because black people are the best sacrificial lambs, I mean, George Floyd was a crackhead criminal, and look at the big spectacle they made out of him with the gold casket and the 8 funerals and $20 million to the family and all that. All they got to do is pick a nigga. And once they pick a nigga and they glorify the whole shit and they make it all about victimhood and white supremacy and all that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll be able to push their agenda. And imagine if they can get hundreds of them out there, hundreds of George Floyds out there, because they definitely tried to George Floyd Renee Good, but that shit ain't work because there was too much video. You know what I'm saying? So imagine if they could really get a black person out there to get themselves shot by ICE. Can you imagine where this country would be if Renee Good was a black woman? They would have turned up. Because they would have sold that narrative hook, line, and sinker. You know what I'm saying? But this is the overall agenda, though. This is the plan, because the plan is to continue to push the narrative. And the narrative is Trump wants to get all the brown people out of the country because he's a racist. And these brown people are nothing more than political pawns to be used in place of black people. And that's because too many black people are waking up and they're not supporting the Democrat Party anymore because they finally realized that the Democrat Party doesn't support their best interest. So now the Democrat Party got to bring in a whole new wave of people and bribe them with government-funded welfare and thus you know, Pablo's gonna vote for Mr. George every election. So I vote for Mr. George. Mr. George give me money. You know, they're going to vote for Mr. George every election cycle. And that's the game that they're trying to play. And they are willing to use sleeper cells with heavy machine guns and explosives to kill mass numbers of Americans across this country in order to do it. They literally have this country held hostage with a gun to our heads. And because Trump is the president, and if something like that were to occur in America, while Trump is the president, it will reflect very badly on his presidency, and the media will be able to capitalize on it. He can't afford to let that happen. So he's got to capitulate in some areas, but use heavy-handed tactics in others. So he's capitulating when it comes to Israel and the people giving the orders to the sleeper cells, but he's using the heavy-handed tactics to go after the sleeper cells. That's what's taking place. That's what these ICE raids are all about. It's not just about getting the illegals out. Now, the illegals, they're getting removed, and they're getting removed because that entire group has to go, because the innocent ones provide the cover for the guilty ones. You see what I'm saying? So now it's the classic case of one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. There's too many bad people amongst this group of people, and this group of people is way too dependent on taxpayer funds, so they serve no purpose being in this country. Now they all have to be removed. The ones that are a threat have to go first, and the ones that provide cover, they go second or in the midst of getting rid of the threats. But at the end of the day, it's all about threat neutralization. Now, this slide right here is about what happened in Iran. Israeli bullets found in bodies of children killed during Iran protests. So allegedly, the Ayatollah Khamenei of Iran, according to the fake news, sent out his security forces, who are armed with AK-47s with 7.62 ammunition, to kill these innocent protesters. But now they're finding 223 and 5.56 ammunition, which is commonly used by the Israelis. They're finding these bullets lodged in the bodies of these victims, these innocent victims. So now we have physical evidence to support what the Iranian government officials, mainly the Iranian foreign minister, has been saying. So now you got to pick a side. Now you got to decide who's telling you the truth and who's lying. Who are you going to believe? Because on one hand, you got the fake news saying it's the Iranian government that does it, when the Iranian government's ammunition is not consistent with the bullets that they're finding in these bodies. But Israeli ammunition is consistent with the bullets that they're finding in these bodies. So who are you going to believe? The ones with the physical evidence, or the ones with the fake narrative that they can repeat over and over and over on millions of platforms all across the world? Who are you going to believe? So all this noise you're hearing in the media about the Iranian government killing their own people, that's exactly the same narrative that they're planning to push here in America once they get enough black people out in the streets, and they can use people dressed in government uniforms to kill these black people who are going to be in the front lines. They're going to spin the exact same narrative that they're spinning against the Ayatollah of Iran. But they're going to spin it against Trump, because they're already drumming up the narrative that Trump's a racist. They've been pushing that for 10 years. Now they're pushing the idea that ICE is it's a militia with a bunch of redneck white boys that just want to bust brown people's heads and shit, which is bullshit, because there's ICE agents of all races. But these guys are Americans, and they're loyal to America. They're legal. The immigrant ones are legal immigrants, and the citizens are born citizens. So the whole racial narrative is falling apart. And now that the racial narrative is falling apart, they're gonna switch to Plan B, and Plan B would be exactly what we saw happen in Iran. And this is why I say there's a dark side to these anti-ICE protests, because the anti-ICE protests is to draw the people out into the streets. And once they get enough people, especially black people, out into the streets, they're going to unleash the sleeper cells to mow them down so they can blame Trump for it. Just like they unleashed the sleeper cells in Iran to mow down the protesters and blame the Ayatollah for it. It's going to be the exact same playbook. They don't know any other way to do it. And it's effective. It's effective because when you have mass death, now there's an opportunity. People get emotional. Now there's an opportunity for emotional manipulation. And that's exactly what they rely on, emotional manipulation. Once you have a bunch of people dead or somebody dead, people are up in arms. People get angry. And when people get angry, they're very easily manipulated. So Pal Times News says TASS reported, citing Iranian security agencies, that Israeli bullets were found in the bodies of children killed by terrorists during protests in Iran. And this is exactly what the Iranian foreign minister said. He said they were terror cells that were killing the protesters. Iran recently witnessed a wave of protests fueled by external agendas and funding. News agencies revealed the involvement of Israel, particularly the Mossad, in supporting individuals in Iran to incite chaos, while the U.S. administration spoke of casualties in the demonstrations. This information exposes Israel's role in provoking disorder within the country and killing civilians to turn society against the government. And again, this is the exact playbook that I believe the mainstream media is going to use against the Trump administration and the American people who are taken to the streets because they fell for the narrative. They're going to be the victims of this. Fox News reports on January 27th, 2025, a year ago, Sinaloa cartel member arrested by ICE in Texas. Now, this is one of those news headlines that confirms that these people are armed to the teeth. Multiple rifles, pistols, and thousands of rounds of ammo found during El Paso arrest, sources told Fox News. You see? So as ICE is busting these illegals, they're busting cartel members who are occupying stash houses with large numbers of weapons and insane amounts of ammunition. Latin Kings gang members stole FBI weapons during left-wing anti-ICE riot in Minneapolis. A violent Latin King member stole FBI equipment from federal vehicles in Minnesota as anti-deportation riots ransacked them, officials said Thursday. The suspect, let me go to the other gallery. This is what, slide 7? Okay, we're going to go to slide 7. Hang on a second, y'all. I got to get to the other gallery where I can blow this shit up. So we'll stop screen share. We'll start screen share. Entire screen. Okay, we're sharing. All right, let's go to the big gallery. Now, if you guys like to support the show, hit the Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo. We have no supporters yet, which is disappointing. But that's all right. That's all right. So the suspect made off with body armor and weaponry, exploiting the Wednesday night protests against immigration and customs enforcement in Minneapolis that left multiple FBI vehicles damaged. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel said in X posts and Twitter posts. Authorities arrested the suspect Thursday and are searching for others involved, offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to their capture or the recovery of property. So, not only did this guy steal weapons, but he also stole vests that say ICE on them. So again, it's the same playbook. It's the same playbook being implemented. Here's another one. DHS seizes guns, explosive device from protesters outside ICE Center, September 28th, 2025. That was just a few months ago. And this is the exact same way that the Israeli Mossad agents in Iran were able to pull it off. They infiltrated the protests and they brought weapons. And with those weapons, oh shit, shout out to my man B Miles for the cash app. Appreciate that, bro. And with those weapons, they were able to they were able to turn those weapons on the protesters and take their lives so the mainstream media could blame the sitting leadership. And now in America, in the ICE protests, you got people showing up with guns and explosives. Kind of sounds like what happened in Iran. I'm sorry, but I there's no other way I can look at this. Because when you couple the findings by ICE in these ICE raids of these weapons and explosives and the heavy-handed tactics being used by ICE, and you look at similar situations abroad, there's no other way to put this. There's no other way to look at this. And black people have always been the cannon fodder for the left. This is why, you guys ever seen that South Park movie when the United States went to war with Canada and they were making fun of the American government, and the American government decided to put all the black soldiers on the front lines and they called it Operation Hide Behind the Darky? That's literally what they're trying to do here with these ICE protests. They're trying to get black people out. That's why they're bringing out those fake new Black Panthers. I call them the new Black Panties because they're a bunch of bitches. And I think we should all start calling them that and make that shit popularize, make that shit go viral.
He a PCO.
Yeah, the professional crash outs. But you see, those dudes ain't gonna crash out. They just gonna show up on camera and convince your black ass to go out in the streets following these white liberals and get your ass shot off so the mainstream media can say, oh, see, Trump is racist because he killed a bunch of black people. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck if you die. They want you to die or get hurt. They were glad when Renee Good got shot by that ICE agent, because now they had an excuse to push their narrative, and in pushing their narrative, they were able to get more people in the streets. And the more people they can get in the streets is the more targets that their sleeper cells are going to have, which means the more bodies that they're going to be able to pile up to blame on Trump, because that's what it's about. It's about putting those bodies on Trump, even if they have to create the bodies themselves. Go ahead, B Miles. I hear you trying to tap in, bro. Let me mute my mic, man.
Now you good. I'm disagreeing. You good.
Anything you want to add?
Oh, now listen, you good.
And the majority of those bodies that they want piled up in the streets are black bodies. That's why they're turning on their COINTELPRO agents on the internet. That's why they're rolling out the Black Lives Matter movement. That's why they're rolling out the new Black Panties. That's why they're doing all of that shit. That's why they got Don Lemon all in the news. That's why that federal judge let him off the hook, even though he fucking invaded a church, which is against the law. And that law was put on the books because the Ku Klux Klan, which ironically was a bunch of white liberals, would invade black churches and terrorize the black churchgoers. Now today, what do we see? A bunch of white liberals invading churches and terrorizing the churchgoers. It's literally the same playbook. But they don't want you to know that. They want you to be ignorant to those facts so you'll believe their narrative. They want you to stay stupid so you'll be stupid. And with you being stupid, it'll result in you losing your life. And you losing your life will result in them having more fuel for their narrative, because that's all you are. You don't mean nothing to these people. And that's the whole dark side of these ICE protests. I believe that they're going to use these protesters as cannon fodder. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, said in a Twitter post on Sunday that it arrested 11 violent rioters and confiscated 2 guns and a potential explosive device from protesters outside an Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility in the Chicago suburbs this weekend. And those are just the dummies that were dumb enough to go out there with that shit on them. But imagine how many of the smart ones are sitting up in the stash houses, hiding out with the real shit. And when that order comes down for them to implement that shit, there will be mass casualties. And they would love nothing more than to do that on Trump's watch. Remember 2020 with COVID, they committed mass murder on Trump's watch and try to blame it on Trump. Y'all remember that? They were trying to call it Trump's pandemic and shit, when in reality, the hospitals were going along with the fake news narrative and locking people down and preventing family members from advocating for their loved ones. And they were isolating patients and putting them on ventilators and blowing their lungs up and restricting them from taking ivermectin, which really worked, and putting them on remdesivir, which shut their kidneys down. It was a mass murder operation. So they have mass murdered Americans before. 9/11 was a mass murder operation. They have mass murdered Americans before, and they will fucking do it again. And this time around, they're planning on doing it because they got nothing left. And the reason why they got nothing left is because Trump is slowly pulling the plug on Israel. And Iran is threatening to demolish Israel, and I believe they will do it. So their last-ditch effort to get Trump out of office is to create mass casualty events so they can blame Trump for it. You see the play? That's the play. That's the fucking play. So the dark side of the ICE protest is basically getting the American people out into the streets so they can make themselves vulnerable to attack. Oh shit, B Miles dropped out. I brought you back in, bro. So they can make themselves vulnerable to attack, suffer attacks, lose their lives, and that narrative can then be used to remove the sitting president in order to put a puppet president in place who will reestablish the New World Order government of America. Now, the people that are fear-mongering about the ICE protests and telling you, oh, it's to set up a police state and all this shit, they're missing one big aspect of this whole thing. We're already in a police state. For the last 20 years, there's certain cities where you cannot commit a crime and get away with it because there's a camera on every street corner and they will track everywhere you go, find out where you went, know who you are, and catch your ass. It's very difficult to get away. They also have a backdoor to every operating cell phone in the United States. So if they really wanted to find out who was who and track you, they could. So we're already in the police state. These actions that are being taken by the Trump administration are necessary. And they're necessary because a vast majority, well, not a vast majority, but a large percentage, I should say, of the individuals that ICE is targeting, you know, the criminal aliens, the ones DHS calls the worst of the worst, these people actually do pose a credible threat to the American people. And they are part of a huge international network that operates using fear, terrorism, and death. And if given the order to carry out acts of terrorism in the United States to cause mass death and capitalize on the fear, they will do it because they have no care for us. They do not love us. They are not our neighbors like the liberals keep trying to tell you. They are our enemies. They are foreign infiltrators. They have invaded our country, and it is their job to take our lives if it comes down to it. So what the Trump administration is doing is absolutely necessary because we have been invaded and we are at war. Go ahead, B Miles. You got the floor, bro. I need a breather.
Yep, and that's right about that, man. Just like when it came down to the daggone Somali that was all over TikTok over there running this mouth talking about like Trump won't be around for Trump and there won't be around to see us take over. And I just had to take a look like, hold up a minute, like you going to come over here into this country after you've been a daggone refugee in your own country of Somalia, and we're going to let you in and become a citizen in this country after you've been a refugee, but yet you always want to be sending money back to Somalia. You send the money back to Somalia, and one of them was actually saying Somalia's gold, and the guy was like, won't you go back? He like, nah. He like, nah, I live here now. But he's like, well, why you keep on talking about Somalia? But see, I know the reason why he said that, because pretty much they want to be taking out top taxpayer dollars and they want to fund terrorists and try to rebuild Somalia. But we like, no, that's not going to happen. And especially up under the Democratic Party, if you look at a lot of them, most of the ones that's up in Congress are, especially in the Democratic Party, are foreigners. Ilhan Omar foreigner, just like a lot of the rest of them, like Joy Reid, foreigner, just like most of the Democrats are foreigners.
Roland
And
Martin, foreigner.
yeah, Roland Martin is a foreigner, just like who else? So many of them are foreigners, and guess what? They don't have no interest in Black Americans over here. They don't have no interest. They will rather run out there and fight and protest for some fucking illegals, yo. That is our replacement that Dr. Claude Anderson was warning us about. You feel me? And like I said, like, we don't got a problem with legal immigrants in our country who assimilate and want to, be a part of the country. No, we don't got a problem with no one being an American citizen. You know what I mean? That want to do it the right way. But when it comes to these motherfucking Somalis and these other damn illegals with this entitlement and this arrogance, I got a serious problem with that. That is a declaration of war, and you talking about some damn 3,000-year promise. You weren't even around with your low IQ, light ball hip asses to even know about Minnesota. So
exactly. Minnesota didn't exist 3,000 years ago. So how the fuck were you promised Minnesota 3,000 years ago? Tell me that.
That's what the fuck I'm saying. And another motherfucker thing that killed me is that Ilhan Omar got a nerve to say we will never thought being discriminated. We will never thought we were kind of this country and be discriminated against in the United goddamn States. Who the fuck you think this is? You are now a country running your damn mouth gonna say the United goddamn States. Excuse me, who do you think you are?
Yeah, she is going to be at the forefront of the entire takedown of the whole establishment. Let me tell you something.
Wait, speak.
The Doge investigations had uncovered all of this fraud nationwide when Elon Musk was running Doge. And when Elon Musk stepped down back in May, Doge is still operational. Somebody else took charge. And what we're seeing in the media now is basically the public disclosure of what Doge had already known. And this is all being broadcast now to prep the public for the mass arrests that are about to happen. But we have to be informed on what the crimes are, how widespread they are, and who's all involved. And the thing with the Somalis, bro, I did a whole stream the other night about the cartel connection. The Somalis have been working with the drug cartels because the drug cartels have been busted laundering money in real estate. So it's very hard for Mexicans to buy property in the United States now. So what they started doing in Minnesota and also in the Northwest and the Midwest is they were using these African immigrants, the Somalis, to purchase warehouses and rent the warehouses to them so they can go ahead and set up their manufacturing operations. And the reason why they're manufacturing in the United States the dope now is because Trump cut off the supply line from South America through the Caribbean Sea and also through Central America with Operation Southcom. And Operation Southcom covers the from Mexico all the way through Central America to South America, and from the Bahamas from Cuba and Puerto Rico south of the Bahamas all the way down to South America through the Caribbean. So all that shit is on lock right now. And the Somalis have been bribing these politicians. So not only have the politicians been making money off the fraud schemes by allocating government funding for these fake programs so they could skim the money off the top, but the scammers who have been getting the money from these programs have also been bribing the politicians to turn a blind eye to the other shit. So what we're going to have is massive fraud charges and bribery charges. And then there's going to be charges of treason and sedition and the whole network. Because remember, we're only hearing about Minnesota, but it's happening in Chicago. It's happening in Boston. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Maine. It's happening all across the country, in Tennessee, all over. And what we're about to witness is Because remember, when Trump declares the Insurrection Act, it's not just going to apply to Minnesota. He's the president. So the Insurrection Act applies nationwide. So the military units that are going to be deployed to Minnesota are just going to be one or two of many across the whole country. And all of these people, this whole network is going to be taken down all in one swoop. And it's all going to start from these ICE raids. Because once the Trump administration can confirm, because they've already confirmed that there was foreign interference in the election to put these fake politicians in power. Now, once they can confirm that there's foreign involvement in this direct terror threat posed to the American people, that's going to be the linchpin to take it all down. And these ICE raids is basically the beginning of that, because now they're going out and they're catching these guys and they're seizing these weapons and they're basically confirming that this was their plan. Like, if the local police get wind that somebody plans to blow up a school or something and they go search the person's house and they find high explosives, like, it's pretty clear that this person meant the threat that they said, right? So now you got individuals across the country that are basically on the low, threatening to commit violence against the American people if they don't get their way. And now you have ICE going out and finding all these weapons and these networks that are capable of carrying out such violence. So it's pretty clear to assume that this was the plan and this is the program. And everybody involved, from the funders to the organizers to the promoters, which would be the politicians, everybody's going down, bro. This shit's not going to end well for the deep state, the Democratic Party, the Rhino Republicans, their non-governmental organization allies, and their activists and all that. It's not going to end well for them, bro. But it will end well for the American people, because we will finally be fucking free.
So, Citizen, man, pretty much I was on point when I was saying that the illegal, them going after the illegals, that's one thing, that's real, but that's the cover for them taking down, pretty much taking down all of the big fish.
Yes. You see, back when Biden stole the election, Trump allowed that to happen. He allowed it to happen so all the local courts could rule against the people who are bringing cases for the election fraud in their local districts, to demonstrate that the courts have been incapacitated. All these judges now that are trying to pass rulings to restrict ICE, it's just further confirmation that the courts are compromised and incapacitated. And all these conditions have to be met before military force can be legally authorized under the Constitution, because the Constitution requires a civilian form of government, which would be the courts, to manage the dealings of the nation, from elections to foreign infiltration to terror cells and potential domestic terrorism and all of that. But now that we see that there's so many judges within the federal courts that are siding with these illegal aliens, which by default makes them side with the terror cells, they are now basically marking themselves as incapable of carrying out their duties. And once all that is established, the military now has the green light to move. And this is why Trump was talking about the Insurrection Act, because the Insurrection Act covers all aspects, from the foot soldiers on the streets to the politicians sitting up in Washington, D.C., because it would take government support for a mutinous opposition against the sitting president for it to be considered an insurrection. See, if it's just the people rising up against the government, the people are limited in their authority against the government. But if it's the people rising up against the government and there's operatives within the government who are also rising up with the people against the sitting government, that is now officially considered an insurrection. So all these politicians are going to be tied into this. And this is why the whole sanctuary city thing and all that had to be allowed to happen. So these politicians can now be on record as being insurrectionists, because they not only advocated for, but legislated to open up the borders to this foreign invasion. They were the enemies within the gate that unlocked the gate for the enemies outside the gate. So, considering that we're in a state of declared war, these illegal aliens are actually considered foreign enemy combatants. And the thing about ICE and the constitutional violations is when we're in a state of declared war, the Constitution don't mean shit. But if you're an American citizen, you are immune to any prosecutorial actions by ICE. Meaning, as an American citizen, ICE cannot arrest you and take you to a facility and hold you. So all these stories you're hearing about American citizens being arrested by ICE or being detained by ICE and all that shit, these are dumbasses that are refusing to identify themselves, because ICE's authority over you stops the minute that they realize that you are an American citizen, because their sole duty is to deal with foreign nationals who do not have legal status in the United States. In other words, foreign enemy combatants. But if you are found to be an American citizen and confirmed by ICE to be an American citizen, they no longer have authority over you. That's why these American citizens who are getting detained by ICE, at the end of it, they end up getting released. But the part of the story they don't tell you is all ICE needs from you is your name and your date of birth. And they call it in on the radio just like the local cops would, or they punch it in their computer in their trucks just like the local cops would. And once they confirm that you're an American citizen, that's where their authority over you stops. But if you refuse to identify, they now have the right to detain you on the suspicion that you do not have legal status in the United States. So all these people that are trying to play that, oh, I don't have to identify myself shit to ICE, they're basically making things more difficult for themselves. Because if you are not a foreign national and you have legal status in the United States, by providing ICE with your name, they don't even ask to see your ID. They ask you for your name and your date of birth. That's it. Because they're the fucking feds. With your name and your date of birth, they can find your address. They can find all your other addresses. They know where you work. They know where you pay taxes at. They know how much taxes are owed to you if you get a tax return. They know everything about you. They know how many kids you got. They know how many hairs are on your nuts from your last doctor visit. Like, they know how many cavities you got. They know every fucking thing. But all they need is these two basic bits of information. They confirm that you're an American citizen or you have legal status, and that's where their authority over you ends. They move on to the next person. It's that simple. It's that simple. And if you feel like your constitutional rights were violated, you have to treat it like any other situation if local police were to stop you and force you to identify under threat of arrest. You go fight that shit in court. But guess what? If you try to fight these ICE detentions in court, you're going to lose, because the courts are aware that the country is under a state of declared war and we're dealing with a foreign enemy invasion. And if you don't know that, that's on you. This is why guys like me exist, to educate you on these things so you do know that. So when you get stopped by ICE, you don't have to be conflicted as to whether you should exercise your Fourth Amendment right to privacy and not identify yourself and risk being detained, or if it would just simply make more sense to identify yourself because ICE is looking for people who don't belong in this fucking country. Because if you belong in this country, you should be proud to say who you are and that you belong in this country. And once the illegal alien problem is resolved and all these people are gone and the mass deportation operations are concluded, ICE won't be in the streets stopping you anymore, asking you who you are. And the beauty of it is, once they stop you once, they don't stop you again, because they now know who you are. It's that simple. It's just like with the local police. It's literally the same shit. The local police do the same thing. So the mainstream media got people making a big deal about this like it's some kind of unconstitutional thing and this and that, but what the mainstream media don't tell you is constitutional rights do not apply to foreign nationals who are in the country illegally. Constitutional rights only apply to foreign nationals who have legal status in the United States. So if you're a foreign national and you're here on a visa, you have constitutional rights. If you're a foreign national and you hop the fucking border and you're here illegally, you do not have constitutional rights. In fact, you have less than constitutional rights. You are now considered a foreign enemy combatant because the country is under a state of declared war and has been that way since 9/11. This is why all throughout the Obama administration, you've seen Obama authorizing all kinds of military action in the Middle East without the consent of Congress, because he was utilizing his presidential wartime powers under the Wartime Powers Act, which gives the president unlimited power over the United States military as the commander-in-chief when the United States is in a state of declared war. He goes from being the chief executive of the country to the commander-in-chief of the military. And he operates in that capacity. And that's the same thing Trump's doing. The only difference between Trump and Obama is Trump's actually doing it in favor of the American people. And this is why they have to pay people to go out there and protest against ICE, because most Americans understand what's taking place and the necessity for what's taking place. Because remember, these ICE raids would not have been necessary if the Democrats didn't open the borders between 2020 and 2025. They would not, none of this would have been necessary. But they created this problem, and now they're trying to blame the people who are solving the problem for creating more problems. It's like the illest psychological operation they're pulling on the people. It's like those, and I hate to use this example, but it's the only one I could think of right now. Plus, I'm a little lit. It's like those women that like would ferociously attack a man and start slapping them and hitting them and punching them and kicking them and all that. And then when the man hauls off and knocks her ass down to defend himself, she's now the victim. That's literally what the Democrats do. They keep poking and poking and poking and provoking the bear. And when the bear strikes back and starts locking their asses up for their obvious violations of law, all of a sudden, oh, Trump's using the power of government against his political enemies and blah, blah, blah. No, Trump's going after criminals. It just so happens that all his political enemies are criminals. That's all it is. And not only are they criminals, but they are hardcore terrorists that are willing to risk the lives of their own constituents. Remember, these were the same people that were convincing you trying to convince you to take the fucking COVID vaccine. These were the same people. And it's amazing to see Americans still trust these people after all the facts have been brought out about what the clot shot really did. I got tons of family members that took that shit. My dad is a hardcore Democrat. I just had a whole debate with him because he really believes the Democrat narrative, because he's been, watching TV his whole life. He don't know about social media and the truth circles. He don't know nothing about that. He's been told all that's conspiracy theory and not to pay attention to it, and he believed it. And guess what? He took that fucking clot shot. Now, any day now, I could lose my dad. And that shit hurts. And I know there's plenty of you guys out there that were smart enough not to take it yourself, but the people you love weren't, because they were captured by the false narrative. And one day they're going to pay the price for believing that shit. And it fucking hurts. It sucks. And all these Americans that are advocating for these illegal aliens, they're going to find themselves in the same position, just in a different sense, where they're going to be overrun by foreigners. They'll become second-class citizens, and they'll have no idea why they're being forced to live like this. And there'll be some foreign motherfucker that can't even speak your language ruling over you. Do you know in California, in Los Angeles especially, back in the 80s and the 90s, even up until the early 2000s, there was a healthy mix of ethnicities within the LAPD, with black officers, white officers, Hispanic officers. Now the LAPD is like all Mexicans. It's literally all Mexicans. And there's plenty of places around the country that are just like that. Like, these foreign nationals are coming in here and they're taking over, and Americans are being forced out of everything, especially the governmental positions, the command and control positions. And that is extremely detrimental to the health of this nation's future. Extremely detrimental. We're literally losing America. And there's Americans out there taken to the streets advocating for this loss of their country. And that's why I can't really come down on my FBA brothers and sisters too much, because if that's what gets you to see Americanism for what it is and differentiate yourself from these foreigners, then so be it. Be FBA. Fuck it. I don't care. I'm a tether anyway. It don't matter to me. All I know is I'm an American, you're an American.
No, you're not a tether, bro. No, you're not a tether.
I say that in jest. I say that in jest because y'all keep reminding me that I'm an honorary FBA, but I wasn't born in this country, but I grew up in this country, so much so that when I go to my home country, they call me Yankee boy because I don't belong there either. I don't fit in with them motherfuckers either. I'm more American than them, than anything, you know? Plus, my kids are Americans, so I can't see myself any other way than being an American. And my FBA folks, they see themselves as American as well. So we have a common goal now. What's best for America. And I think that sentiment is kind of what brought me and Brother B Miles together, because he's FBA. I'm not, but we see the same problem. We're watching the same enemy, and we're drawing similar conclusions. They might not be exactly the same, but at least we got a handle on what's really going on. And that's the way every American should look at it. And the fact that they call these illegal aliens immigrants, it's a slap in the face to people like me, because I come from a real immigrant family who went through the immigration process. So we got to get out of calling these illegals immigrants and call them what the law calls them, which is illegal aliens. Because that's what the law refers to them as, because legally that's their categorization. Illegal aliens. Don't call them nothing other than illegal aliens. We have to make that term relevant again. You know, when I debated with my dad, he was like, the term, we talked about the illegals and the open borders, and he was like, I don't even like that term, illegal alien. I'm like, but Dad, you had a bunch of illegal aliens working for you at one point, and that's exactly what you called them. Now all of a sudden it's offensive, but it's the programming. He's programmed. He forgot what his mentality was yesterday, because he never had a mentality. His mentality was what he was being told. So now they implement the new stage of programming, which completely contradicts the old programming, and they don't even see it because they're not thinking. They're being manipulated. But these people are illegal aliens, and that's exactly what we should call them. And they all need to go. And you know, a lot of those Somalis had legal status because of the temporary protected status that they got in the 90s when they came over here, and the anchor babies they had because of the temporary protected status, which gave them legal status in the United States. Their anchor babies became citizens, right? But now that Trump has revoked the TPS, the temporary protected status for the Somalis, every Somali that was here under temporary protected status is now considered an illegal alien and must be removed from the country. That's why the Somalis are being deported. Also, with Trump's fight for the 14th Amendment, to make the 14th Amendment only apply to foreigners in this country who have legal status, as well as, of course, born Americans, that will revoke the citizenship of millions of these anchor babies all across the country, because their parents didn't have legal status when they had their child. Thus, their child is not entitled to birthright citizenship, which means if their child got birthright citizenship while their parents were here illegally, that child's citizenship is now voided. Everybody gets deported. And I think that needs to happen. What say ye, Brother Miles? What say ye?
Yeah, man, I definitely agree, man. I definitely agree. Like we definitely gotta put a yeah, man, our people really gotta wake up and see that the situation is really much more deeper than what we think it is. You feel me? Just like, yeah, man, I'm just like, I remember like when I first started to like really look at illegal immigration and that whole entire situation back in like 2017, 2018. Once I started to like do the research and started digging deep, I'm looking like, oh no, we've been bamboozled the whole entire time, because I remember how the Democrats were always trying to say, "Oh, these people need a place to come here. No one's illegal on stolen land and all this other shit." And I'm looking like, I don't want to hear this shit. These people broke the damn law. I don't want to hear none of that. And they always made it seem like these people was escaping persecution when at the same time it was orchestrated the whole entire time for a takeover. That's exactly what we are dealing with, man. So I'm like this, like I ain't going out there to fight against no rights. They got a job to do. You know what I mean? It's like they got a job to do, and it is what it is. I'll be glad when these people get the hell up out of here.
Yeah, and another aspect of this whole thing, and another narrative that I was privy to, is a lot of Americans, especially Black Americans, they feel like the government is their enemy and has always been their enemy, and it will be to Black people's detriment to support ICE, right? But my thing is, you don't have to support ICE or not support ICE. I don't care. Just don't get in their fucking way, right? But the narrative that I see being pushed, especially in the conscious circles, is that supporting ICE is supporting our enemy. But that narrative is being pushed without the clarification that these illegal aliens are enemies to Black Americans too, and they pose a bigger threat than the government, because these illegal aliens are literally forcing Black Americans out of their communities.
Yep. And guess who else is supporting them? Willie D.
Yeah, he's a sellout. We already know that. And you know what? The real coons are actually starting to show their true colors now. Now we're starting to see who the real coons are.
Yep. Willie D is definitely compromised.
And if you are a Black American and you want what's best for your country, the best thing for your country is to remove these foreign nationals. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. But they push the narrative like the government is our enemy, but they fail to mention, and again, this is the same type of lies that the mainstream media tells, right? Lies of omission, leaving out certain facts to give you a certain perspective. They never ever mention one time in this conscious community conversation that I was listening to that the illegal aliens also are enemies to Black Americans, because again, they're forcing us out of our homes. They're absorbing the resources that were meant for Black folks. And it's like the Democrats have been promising Black people reparations for how long now? And when it's time for them to pay up, what do they say? Oh, we don't have the funding. But they bring in all these illegals and all of a sudden they got all this tax money to give them welfare. Like, where'd that money come from? So that alone in itself should turn any Black American off to even the idea of supporting these illegal aliens. And because the illegal aliens pose a bigger threat, even if you believe that that ICE and the government are your enemies, ICE is your enemy as a Black American, siding with the illegals is still working against you, because the illegals are your enemy, ICE is your enemy. So now you're in a situation where the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So what you do is you sit back, you don't pick a side, you don't advocate for or against any side, and you let one enemy destroy the other. You let ICE get rid of all the illegals. Now, what are you left with? The same old government that your ancestors had to contend with, that you're contending with, and believe it or not, your people have actually made ground dealing with this government because they've made concessions for Black people that, in past years they were refusing to make. So something happened along the way where they weakened their stance and they changed their position. Now Black people are afforded the full rights as every other race of people in this country. Thus, we have the same opportunities as everybody else to do what we do and make something of ourselves, follow our passions, follow our dreams, like what you were talking about in your live earlier today. Follow our passions, follow our dreams, and have a tangible idea of what it means to believe that I have value. Now I can monetize my passion. I can monetize my skills. I can pour my energy into something that's going to help me in my real life. You know what I'm saying? And it's like this mainstream media narrative is designed to like kind of shut all that off and just get you to be a sheep and follow along with everybody else right into the slaughterhouse. Advocate for things that are not to your benefit. Advocate for things that destroy your community. Advocate for things that destroy your health. Advocate for things that destroy your mental health. Advocate for things that hold you back. And they've done such a great job at that with black people that to this day, black people are still at the bottom. And when you look at every other race of people that are above black folks in America, they're not so bought into these narratives as black people are. So it's about time that we wake up. And I think the older generation failed us, because when you look around at black folks today in their 30s and 40s and shit, we're more awake than anybody else in the community. And it's the majority of us that see what's going on and understand what's going on. But then the older generation, they're those hardcore Democrats that will argue you down and support everything they heard on mainstream media and be anti-ICE because the mainstream media told them to be anti-ICE. And they failed us because they never taught us how to think for ourselves. We had to figure that shit out. But once we figured it out, the world became clearer. And now not only do we see the enemy's agenda, but it's so clear that we can also see the alternative of what this country could become if we were able to defeat the enemy's agenda. And defeating the enemy's agenda is as simple as learning the truth and helping as many people as you can see the truth. I yield the floor.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Couldn't said it no better than that, man. Yes. Yes, man. Like, we definitely got to see the situation, you know what I mean, for what it is, because, like, if we dealing with this invasion and this is our home and our backyard and where we from, we definitely got to be on point as far as, like, you know what I mean, us defending, you know what I'm saying, our country and our homeland and our soil, you know, because, you know, like, you know what I mean, like I've been saying, this is where we from, and, we belong here just like everybody else, man, and not just see, like, what the Horn Tiger Democratic Party has been doing, for, like, years and stuff like that, keeping us blind, that goes back to what Lyndon B. Johnson was saying. I'll have them niggas voting for Democrat for the next 200 years. And it's a shame. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of the elders out there, they still want to be stuck on that, Democratic, mindset and stuff like that. They just believe, everything, and what's so crazy is that it's up to, like, those of us middle age or, like I said, younger stuff like that. We got to bring that awareness to them, because, if they're unaware, we definitely got to bring that to them, because it's like, we never know, what we might, just by us breaking it down. So oh, my fault, it's like, you never know. It's like, what you might, my fault. I'm just hearing somebody noise in the background. My fault. Yeah, man. It's like you never know what we might spark. Just by bringing awareness to them. You feel me?
Yeah, that's the whole thing about it, bro. Like, people have to really get in tune with all sources of information, because for our entire lives we've been made to believe that the mainstream media is the only source of information. And imagine the generation before us that didn't have the internet, that was their only source of information, so they were taken advantage of, and they were made to believe things that aren't true, that aren't realistic, and are detrimental to their own well-being. And now we find ourselves in the situation that we're in, where we have an entire political party of foreign infiltrators that are willing to sell this country out to foreign entities and foreign powers, even at the expense of American lives, if it came down to it. And now we're seeing them trying to implement that agenda in real time. And that shit is scary, bro. Like, the fact that We have so many Americans that are in support of these illegals staying here, which means the sleeper cells get to remain, which means the country continues to be held hostage, which means that the foreign agenda is going to continue to get pushed, which means every complaint that you have about the government not supporting you as an American citizen will continue, and it'll never get solved. Like, think about it. Congress is infiltrated by foreign infiltrators. We literally have 85% of our sitting Congress members that have dual citizenship, which means they have loyalty to foreign countries. And this is why whenever it's time to pass funding bills to give money to a foreign country, they do it overnight. But then when it's time to give the American people their own tax money back in the form of little itty bitty stimulus, it's a months-long debate because they're not representing us as Americans. You feel me? They're not there to serve the American people. They're there to serve foreign interests, and that's exactly what they're doing. And they're all mad at Trump because Trump is reversing all that shit and actually implementing policies that serve the American people. So now the whole system that's designed to drain America's energy and pump it into the rest of the world is now collapsing in on this man and trying to destroy him and discredit him. Because if they discredit him, they discredit his movement, they discredit his followers. Thus, anything they say now becomes irrelevant, and we now have the floor front and center, and everybody's going to believe us because we're the credible news source and they're just conspiracy theorists. That's what the game is. But the funny part about it is every conspiracy theory over the last 10 years that people were told their whole lives was a conspiracy theory has been proven to be true. So the conspiracy theorists are right. So now when I get called a conspiracy theorist, I take that as a badge of honor because that means that I actually know what the fuck's going on. And you guys in the audience, you guys that are watching, you should too. You should too. Because the TV news, they've lost the narrative. They've completely lost the narrative, and now they're dependent on their operatives on social media to continue to sell you the narrative. But I'm going to tell you right now, everything that Trump's doing is in the best interest of this country. And the danger and the threat that we face as a nation is much greater than you would even imagine. Like, who would have thought that your neighbors, your Mexican neighbors down the street had a fucking basement full of heavy belt-fed machine guns and they were going to tear up the whole block once the order was given? You know, like that's an unsettling thought. Because your little 9mm for your everyday carry is not going to stop a truckload of vatos that are going to fucking Swiss cheese your house. It's not. You're not going to stop them. And if you're in a democratic city where the police stand down when there's chaos in the street, like we see in Minneapolis, there's nobody to call. So if ICE is going around kicking in doors and grabbing these motherfuckers and seizing these weapons, I say let them. Because guess what? I'm an American citizen. Ain't no illegal aliens living in my house. So guess what? ICE ain't coming to my fucking house. And if they knock on the door, my name is X, Y, and Z, and my birth date is X, Y, and Z. Okay, American citizen, see you later. Boom. That's where your power stops. You can't do shit to me. You can't touch me because I'm an American citizen, not a foreign national. It's that simple. And that's all it takes for, one, Americans to protect themselves, and two, for the federal government to do their job and protect American lives and American interests. That's all it takes. And it sounds crazy for me to sit here and say, well, comply with the government, even though they're violating your Fourth Amendment right. They're not really violating your Fourth Amendment right because we're in a state of declared war and you have no fucking Fourth Amendment right. It's either you're one of us or you're a foreign enemy combatant. So if you refuse to identify, we're going to view you as a foreign enemy combatant. So we're going to put you in handcuffs. We're going to put you in the car and we're going to drive you around and give you several chances to identify yourself. And if you continue to fail to identify yourself, you're going to wind up at a fucking facility until we figure out who the fuck you are. Because we are at war. Our president just captured a fucking world leader of another country. You know what that means? We were at war with that country and he conquered that country. That's what that means. We are in a state of war and we are dealing with a foreign invasion embedded on American soil. They've been here since 2019 because the migrant caravans started in 2018 and got to the U.S. border in 2019. And then when Biden came in 2021, more of them came. That is an invasion, and that's why Trump calls it an invasion, because that's what it is, an act of war. The first act of war Venezuela committed against the United States was helping the Democrats steal the election with their Dominion servers that were based in Caracas, Venezuela, Barcelona, Spain, and Frankfurt, Germany. Barcelona and Frankfurt had already been raided by the Marines shortly after the election, but Venezuela was left untouched. Venezuela committed the first act of war by interfering in our presidential elections. The second act of war was when the Democrats, who they put in power, opened up the border. They started sending droves of invaders into our country. That was the second act of war. The third act of war was with the invaders sending the drugs that were poisoning Americans. That's the third act of war. Now we're coming for your head. And that's where we're at right now. And Trump went after Maduro to cut off the drug supply from South America to the Mexican drug cartels. Because the drug cartels in Mexico, they got tons and tons of money. But the tons and tons of dope that they sell to make all that money comes from Colombia by way of Venezuela. So if Venezuela is put out of business and Colombia is put out of business, that dope supply gets cut off to Mexico. Now the drug cartels are on a budget. And they're desperately trying to set up manufacturing operations in the United States so they can start getting the dope back on the streets so they can get their cash flow going. But as of right now, their cash flow has been neutralized. And this is why Trump is waging war on the Mexican drug cartels after he captured Maduro and shut that shit down. But while all this is going on, there's aggressive posturing against Iran by the Trump administration, but Iran is planning on bombing and leveling Israel. And I believe that eventually, before the end of this year, Iran is going to do just that to Israel. But once that starts happening, if Trump doesn't respond, the sleeper cells here are going to activate and start killing American people. That's a whole nother scenario. So the ICE raids now have to be conducted at haste to get rid of these sleeper cells. So when Iran takes out Israel and Trump doesn't respond, Israel has no fighting force here in the United States to force us to respond. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many different angles and so many different aspects to this, but it all boils down to one thing. The ICE raids is to neutralize the sleeper cells, remove the cover operatives, and remove the active operatives from the country in order to prevent mass casualty events. You got the floor, B. Miles.
Interesting, man, that you talking about the sleeper cells, man. Absolutely. That's exactly what we've been infiltrated, man, because I've been saying it for a minute on the channel, like, these people are sleeper cells, man. They brought these people in here. You know, just like on the movie The Purge election year, how we had an invading force. There was another movie that talked about that back then. It was called Red Dawn. The first one, the original, took place. We was invaded by Russia. The second one, we was invaded by North Korea, but really we was invaded by China. But they switched the story to North Korea for the propaganda, but it was really by China. So when I take a look at that movie and I see what's going on, citizen, man, that's exactly what we've been dealing with, man. An invasion and an act of war. And then these people still want to be leaving the flags of their countries and don't want to go back. That's definitely a problem, because with these sleeper cells, citizen, man, that's the one thing that really struck a chord. I'm looking like, yo, we can't trust these people, yo. And I was up there trying to tell people thought that I was crazy the whole entire time speaking on it. I'm like, nah, yo, this is going to be a major problem. People used to tell me, like, why you talking about legal immigration, man? They our people. I'm looking like they not your people, yo. They not your people. Get out of your mind of that 12 chart bullshit. You feel me? Like these people not your people, and you want to try to include them? No, stop it. They not our people. So why you want to be defending these people when they invaded you and they want to replace you? You feel me?
Yeah, because the thing is, the mainstream media is selling it to them in a way that they're unaware that these people want to replace us and are invading us. You know what I'm saying? So that they're selling it like, oh, these are our friends and our neighbors, and we love them, and this, all the virtue signaling bullshit. When in reality, these are the replacements. These are the political. This is the new political class. And as the Democrats continue to cater to these people with our tax dollars, that's going to put them in a better financial position than the average American, which means they will go from being the new political class to the new ruling class. Because they're going to have kids, and their kids are going to get birthright citizenship, and then their kids are going to become the police and your Congress members and your mayors, and before you know it, America is going to be, you know what I'm saying? Everything's going to have English subtitles, and all the signs are going to be in bold Spanish. And not only that, we won't have constitutional law anymore. We'll be under international law.
Yep. Where people don't even look like you and don't even speak a speck of English, but yet they ruling over you. And I'm tired of pressing one for English.
Yeah.
I'm tired of that. I'm tired of like people being denied of a job because they're not bilingual. That don't make no damn sense.
Yeah, that shit's crazy. When they started doing that, I couldn't believe that shit. I was like, what? I got to speak Spanish to have this job? Man, I'm working for myself. I'm hitting the pavement and I'm starting a business and I'm working for myself because this is insane. But yeah, bro, that they're changing. They're fundamentally changing America, just like Obama said they would. And they're trying real hard to do it. And they're fighting against Trump tooth and nail because Trump is fighting tooth and nail to prevent that shit and keep America as America. You know what I mean? But B Miles, man, I appreciate you having me on, brother. I guess we can go ahead and close out. I guess the last word that I'm going to give you guys is, let me go ahead and put my camera on so y'all can see me. The last word that I'm going to give you guys is this. Be smart. Don't be stupid. Understand that everything coming from the mainstream media right now is a lie, and it's a lie designed to put you at a disadvantage, to disenfranchise you. And anybody you see on YouTube or social media that is giving you a similar narrative, that means that they're giving you the same narrative, just in a different flavor. Don't fall for it. Think for yourself. Understand what's going on. And when it comes to these ICE raids, if they come to your community, name and date of birth is all they need to leave you the fuck alone. That's it. You don't have to fight with them. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to refuse to identify and get detained and all that shit, because once you get detained, you're at their mercy. And if you don't trust them and you think they're going to harm you, the last thing you want to do is put yourself at their mercy. So be smart and stop following these white liberals. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you. They see you as cannon fodder, and they're trying to play Operation Hide Behind the Darkies. So do not get out there and join those dumbass protests, because it means nothing. It serves no purpose other than providing more targets for the sleeper cells. So that's my word to you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. B Miles, I appreciate you having me on, brother. And you go ahead and tell them what you want to tell them, man. I'm gonna mute up.
Oh yeah, man. Same thing here, man. I appreciate you, Citizen Man, for coming up on the live stream. Yeah, man. Definitely same thing here, man. And like I said, we definitely gonna keep our foots on the neck, man. And we're gonna keep on bringing this information, man. And like I said, I appreciate everybody for coming on the live stream. And like I said, like, share, and subscribe to the Citizen Man channel, but also donate and show love to the brother. You know what I'm saying, on this channel. You know what I'm saying? This channel is growing, so you definitely want to go in and do that, though, fam. And peace out. Good night.
Peace, bro. And I want to say peace to my audience. Appreciate you guys being here. Peace to B Miles's audience. You guys are awesome, man. I really love the fact that you guys are open-minded and are willing to listen, because that means a lot. It's hard to find, groups of people, especially in the conscious space, that are actually willing to entertain the political conversation, because a lot of the fake conscious community gurus and teachers, they will have you believe that politics don't matter, when politics is what the enemy literally uses against you to oppress you. They literally use the political system. So anybody telling you to ignore the politics is not your friend. They're your enemy, and their job is to continue the oppression against you. And I don't want you guys to fall for that. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I'm here. And that's why I kick the knowledge that I kick. And I chose the field of study that I chose, because this is part of understanding the enemy's playbook. Because if you understand your enemy, you understand how to defeat your enemy. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I want to say thank you guys for being here. You guys have been more than great, gracious, more than awesome. Before we go, let me go ahead and do this real quick before we get out of here. Don't leave just yet. Don't leave just yet. Follow your boy over on Rumble. Come over to the Citizen Man TV channel. Subscribe to Citizen Man TV, but also follow me over on Rumble, because I got hundreds of videos that are not available on YouTube, but they are on Rumble. I also have a backup YouTube. Damn it. A backup YouTube page called Citizen Man, and I keep that page active in case I get flagged off of Citizen Man TV. I'll post videos and community posts on the Citizen Man channel to let you guys know what's going on and where you can find me, which more than likely will be Rumble. And of course, last but not least, if you guys would like to support the show, whether you want to support my show or B Miles' show, doesn't matter. Hit the Cash App, the PayPal, or the Venmo using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow. The box opens up and all the links are there. And you can also find those links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble on my channels. And for B Miles supporters, man, y'all support that brother, man. I be seeing him go live. He be having 100, 200 people in the live. If everybody throw $1 in, that brother be paid. Then he'll be able to travel around and do that shit that the white boy be doing, Nick Shirley be doing. You know what I'm saying? Taking videos, doing reports. So we need the support of the people, because these media outlets, they get millions and millions of dollars just to read you a script and lie to you. And us, we put in the work, we do the study, we do the legwork, we do the research, and we present it to you guys, so that way you don't have to go through all the painstaking research to understand these scenarios, and we can give you that understanding for, with little to no effort. All you got to do is sit down and listen, sit down and watch. You know what I'm saying? So a little something in the pot always helps. This is a war. We are at war, and we can't win this war unless we build our war chest up. So, the donations really mean a lot. The monetization pays, but it's like pennies per show. You know what I'm saying? But the support from the people is what really fuels these operations and really gets things going. So don't ever forget to support your favorite YouTubers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you guys showing love and showing support. And I will see you on the next one. I'll be live tomorrow night on my channel, Citizen Man TV, at around 10 p.m. I got, very intensive slideshows where I break down a lot of deep topics and really put shit in perspective. So if you want to learn more about the political system, the military operations, Trump's plan, how the plan's being executed, our friends, our allies, our enemies, our foes, and so on, tune in to Citizen Man. Come watch the show, man. Come watch. Stop bullshitting with yourself. Come learn something. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Citizen Man, out. That's what it's all about right here. Oh, wrong shoulder. That's what it's all about right here. This right here. America. Peace.